Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. This is going to be the Dragonflight Warlock general talents slash abilities, I guess, wish list video. This is going to be the fourth video in the series. We covered Affliction, Demonology, and Destruction, but with Dragonflight and the current talent trees, I guess, that have been unveiled for Dragonflight, there is the one general class side, for example, Warlock, we've already seen Druid, and then the actual spec side, you know, Affliction, Demonology, Destruction. But the general class side does indeed appear to have a lot of like baseline abilities that classes have in general now. But I also thought that it would be a good time to maybe make a video on ones that were iconic, relevant, just neat abilities that fit the general template toolkit of Warlock, and some that I wouldn't mind seeing come back in Dragonflight. Now, most of these are talents and abilities, but I'm going to be honest, it was sort of hard trying to find a list of 10. I even have only 8 at this point. A couple of them sort of are desired changes to certain abilities or traits or things that are around right now, but also have certain talents that were around in the past that sort of work together. You'll see a top 8 list. Now, Blizzard did mention that hopefully before alpha hits, which could be in a few weeks, could be in a few months. I actually have really no idea. Hopefully soon, because 9.1 or 9.2 is sort of coming to an end. Either way, they did mention that they would like to release class and spec talent trees before Dragonflight hits alpha, which I would assume is a pretty small closed alpha, but I'm hoping at some point within the next few weeks, maybe months, I don't know, sometime soon, we'll end up getting them, which opens up a plethora of, I guess, different video topics, discussions, debates we can have. But I'm hoping that maybe something from the AF, the demo, the Destro video, or this general video might be taken and potentially put into those trees. So with that being said, I want to give one big shout out to my patrons before we get into the video. Thank you guys a million times for all support on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, it should be a link up here as well as down in the video description below. Once again, thank you a million times, guys. With that being said, let's get into it, starting off with number 8. Alrighty, so number 8 is not actually a talent or a returning ability, but it is having a baseline player-bound interrupt and not one that is bound to your pet. Now, there are a lot of positives to this with a couple negatives depending how you look at it, but I think that, Warlock is the only class in game, as far as I know, that does not have a baseline player-bound interrupt. I think even Hunter has counter shot, right, which is bound to the actual player and not your pet. Now, there have been a couple upsides to having a pet bound interrupt in the past. A fight that comes to mind is Il'gynoth, where you could send your pet over to a different part of the room and have multiple warlocks follow a kick rotation, where you would kick the organ across the room, bloods wouldn't spawn, less ads to deal with. So there is some relevancy there. But also there are times where your pet dies and you can't kick a mob. There are times you die, which takes 7 seconds to get your pet back out again, which is 6. It doesn't matter, it's too long. You can't kick. There are also times where you just try to kick a mob, but your pet's across the room doing whatever, and it tries to kick, but it's 18 miles away, and you miss your kick. Having a player-bound interrupt, Warlock toolkit is already solid, it's fine, but having a player-bound interrupt would overall, in my opinion, be a net positive for Warlocks heading in the Dragonflight. Now, with Affliction and Destro, you have the Fell Hunter. This is a glyph to make it into this eyeball thing. You have Spell Lock. Demonology has the Felguard, which has Axe Toss, which is both an interrupt and a stun. You could very well just remove the interrupt part on Axe Toss and make it a stun once again, which sort of is like a second pseudo kind of interrupt if you need it. But it would also open up other options, right? If you're playing AF and Destro, you can play your Imp and Mythic Plus, you can play the Dog still, you can play your Succubus, which does more damage, technically in pure single target, or you can even play your Voidwalker, which has a slight pulsing AoE damage effect, which theoretically is your highest AoE damage pet, right? I think it would open up more options for the class, and you wouldn't feel so just locked into playing, I'm playing my dog in Mythic Plus, or settings where I need a kick, because that's the only way I can kick mobs. So, number 8, a baseline player-bound interrupt that is not a part of playing Grimoire of Sacrifice. One that you have with a pet out. Alrighty, so number 7. Now this is a returning ability which we had, I think a couple expansions ago. I can't remember exactly. It might actually say it here if I pull it up. Number 7 is Unbound Will. Yes, in 7.03 it was removed in Legion. In 6.02 the cooldown has been increased to 2 minutes from 1, and it no longer costs health. And it was added initially in Mist of Pandaria. Unbound Will purges all magic effects, movement impairing effects, and loss of control effects from yourself and your demon. Now, I don't do a whole lot of PvP or arenas, but I have seen this brought up in multiple avenues, facets, talking about returning abilities, Unbound Will being one of them. There certainly is some relevancy to this, and even PvE, Mythic Plus, there are times where you get certain magic effects, movement impairing effects, and loss of control effects, both on you and your demon, which this would be a nice sort of like quality of life kind of talent in certain spots. Now, there was both Unbound Will and Dark Bargain, which I was considering, but I think having both Dark Bargain and Dark Pact and Unending Resolve around probably would be a bit excessive as far as Warlock tank ability and survivability goes. But I do think Unbound Will could be a very interesting ability that could return in Dragonflight, and I don't think it would really break anything or make it too OP. I don't do a whole lot of PvP or arenas or anything, but at the same time, you know, I think it would be safe to bring back, and I do vaguely remember playing with it a little bit in Legion, I guess in WoD before Legion, when I came back to the game. I mean, it was played certain times. I remember using it in PvE a handful of times. A cool, iconic ability I wouldn't mind seeing back. Number 7 being Unbound Will. Not incredibly impactful, but one I think most of the Warlock population would welcome back. Alrighty, so number 6. Now this one's sort of a bit of a reach again as well, but it's not only an ability I like to see back, it is sort of a class change, and that is removing 6-second pet summons. Hunters got their 6-second pet summons reverted in beta of Shadowlands, but Warlock was just left to flounder around with 6-second pet summons, and I can't tell you how many times I've died in Plus, well, there's a lot there. I've died in general, and I want to get a pet out to kick or to dispel or to do whatever, but I'm sitting here counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's out, and the whole pack is dead, or I missed my kick or whatever. 6-second pet summons are terrible. Like, they're not good. Like, they're not good. And chances are, I even remember at the start of the expansion, people were just playing Grimoire of Sacrifice in arenas because it was so bad. They'd kill your pet, you just wouldn't even pull it back out. I have no idea if it's still a thing now. I'm not sure. But 6-second pet summons are just really bad, and they need to go. It's bad in PvP. It's bad in PvE. It's bad basically everywhere. It feels terrible. Now, we do have Fel Domination, which is a 3-minute cooldown. It makes your next spell basically instant cast, and it can be further reduced by the Fel Domination Conduit, whatever it's called, Fel Celerity. But Fel Celerity, number 1, is going to be gone in Dragonflight unless it's introduced in some other way, shape, or form. And there have been certain times where even I've had to try to pull a pet out, you know, and Fel Dom's basically, or it's on cooldown for another 10 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever, and it feels bad. Once again, I missed my kick. Now, I think a better ability to bring back in Dragonflight, if possible, is not, I mean, okay, hey, I'll keep Fel Domination, but one I'd like to see a bit more is that, or I guess, Flames of Xoroth. This is an ability which is a pretty, okay, it costs a Burning Ember, which was a thing back in, I think, Mist and, you know, WoD and all that stuff, but Burning Embers are just soul shards. They're the exact same thing at this point. It's literally the same thing. A 1-minute cooldown, the Flames of Xoroth instantly revive your last demon. Now, as far as like a general talent goes for Warlock, I could see this maybe being a thing if it's on a row with like some other few, like, you know, some not really important traits. But this could be more relevant at certain points in time. Pets really aren't supposed to die a whole lot when it comes to PvE. I think they have like a damage or a mitigation shield. But in PvP, this could be a relevant ability, right? And not force Warlocks to just play Grimoire of Sacrifice most of the time because, you know, they kill your pet and it takes 10 years to get it back out. I would love to see 6-second pet summons made 2.5 seconds or whatever, baseline regardless. But if they're not, or even if they aren't, Flames of Xoroth would be awesome. Thematically, it makes a lot of sense. It'd be really cool seeing a returning ability, which they asked for feedback on in Dragonflight. And I think it's a bit, it's a 1-minute cooldown versus 3 minutes compared to Feldom with Fel Celerity going away. I would love to see Flames of Xoroth back. All you got to do is change it from 1 Burning Ember to 1 Soul Shard. It might seem like a little bit, but I would take that trade in the vast majority of settings. Alrighty, number 5. Now that we sort of got the first few, like, whatever kind of spells out of the way. Number 5, I think the first sort of heavy hitter, I'd like to see a return of Demonic Knowledge. Demonic Knowledge requires Demonology, which this could very easily be made into a General Warlock trait, not just Demonology. I debated putting it in the demo video, but I thought it just sort of fit the class as a whole better. It wasn't just a demo thing. Increases your spell damage by an amount equal to 8% of your total of your active demon's stamina plus intellect. Basically, if you have a demon out It buffs your baseline spell damage. Now, Demonic Knowledge, I believe, was played back in like Wrath, I'm pretty sure, with Demo, with a trait or build that gave your party or your raid increased spell power. I think with meta demo, it's been a long time. I should know this because Wrath is coming out soon, but it was played back in the day to basically give your party or your raid, I believe, more baseline spell power with another trait that gave that buff, I think, universally. But even if you don't have that around, which I don't think is going to happen, I'm not a big fan of raid-wide buffs, number one. So putting that aside, I think Demonic Knowledge would be a good trait to have around if you're comparing it to what number 4 is here, which is Grimoire. I guess you can call it Grimoire of Sacrifice. Grimoire of Sacrifice, flashbang warning, or Demonic Sacrifice. Now, I guess, okay, sure. Grimoire of Sac and Demonic Sac are the next talent here. I want to see come back. I guess change, alter to come back. I think number 4. But I think it'd be really nice to have Demonic Sac or Demonic Knowledge on a row. Maybe like you have the option of taking Demonic Knowledge, which means you have a pet active, so it passively just buffs your baseline spell damage. Or on that same row, if this is currently the way it works in Dragonflight, you have the option of taking either, you know, some kind of Grimoire of Sacrifice or Demonic Sacrifice ability. Now, Grimoire of Sacrifice in its current form is just a disaster in itself. It hasn't been really playable, honestly, for a couple expansions. The only time Grimoire of Sacrifice is played right now is really when your pet is useless, or, like earlier, when you need to have a reliable kick on a fight and your pet's off playing himself in the corner and he can't kick the mob. Like Prototype Pantheon, for example. There was another fight last year, Kil'jaedens, where you played Grimoire of Sacrifice. Not because it was good, it's bad, but you needed a kick bound to you, the player, and your pet's off playing around in the corner and you can't guarantee the kick, which brings us back to number 7 or whatever that was, right? A baseline Playerbound interrupt. So, putting that aside, this current version of Grimoire of Sac has not been good for a very long time. It is terrible. It doesn't scale with multiple targets. It doesn't like AoE. It's just very, 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 very bad. Putting it on a row with this trait is an abomination. It's putrid. There's no shot these are the same traits. They're actually just terrible. But putting that aside, I would like to see a return of Demonic Knowledge. I think it'd be really cool for every spec. You got a pet out, you get a baseline, you know, spell power buff. That's great. So I guess that was what, number 5, right? I think Demonic Knowledge. Now, sort of 5 and 4 being lumped together. Number 4 would be some kind of change or overhaul to Grimoire of Sacrifice. Realistically, I'd like to see Demonic Sacrifice come back over Grimoire of Sacrifice. Just get rid of that abomination of a talent and bring back Demonic Sacrifice, right? You have varying abilities here, which I guess varying, you know, effects, like sacrificing your imp, for example, gives you 15% more fire damage. Your Voidwalker gives 2% health every 4 seconds. Your Succubus gives you 15% more shadow damage. Your Fellhunter, 3% mana, and your Felguard increases your shadow damage by 10% and restores 2% of your total mana every 4 seconds, right? So depending on the pet you sacrificed, you got different effects. Now, this is a trait coming back from TBC and Wrath. There might be a bit more tuning that's needed today, because like there's varying spell types and things, not just pure fire damage or pure shadow damage, but I think you could make Demonic Sacrifice work to some extent. The majority of the time, you're probably not going to be sacrificing your Voidwalker or your Fellhunter, but there are certain times where you might. In questing or just general, you know, open world content, why not sack the Voidwalker, sack the Fellhunter? In raiding, sack the Imp, sack the Succubus for that damage increase, right? And if it works for demo, hey, it better be something big because the Felguard's big. But either way, I would love to see number 4, once again being lumped in here, 5 being Demonic Knowledge, number 4 being Demonic Sacrifice. Get rid of this garbage ability. Either rework it and make it what it used to be, being like a baseline damage increase, which say Grimoire of Sac now increases damage of abilities by 15%, was 20 or whatever. It increased your baseline damage of abilities. It wasn't some random proc that just gave you a random damage effect somewhere every once in a while. Either make Grimoire of Sacrifice a baseline damage increase like it is right here, or just get rid of it and bring back Demonic Sacrifice. Everybody knows Demonic Sacrifice. It's iconic. It's been around forever. It was a part of the 0-2140 Shadowbolt spam build in TBC. It'll be a thing. I think it's a thing in Wrath. I'm not sure. I should know. But Demonic Sacrifice is one of the most iconic Warlock abilities that's in the game, or I guess was in the game, right? And it fits every single spec. You could make it a general, you know, Warlock side talent tree ability. Once again, maybe even on the same row as number 5, Demonic Knowledge, and make them take the choice between Demonic Knowledge or Demonic Sacrifice. But I think Demonic Sacrifice would be a great contender, is a great contender for a returning ability for General Warlock talent trees in Dragonflight. Number 4, Monk Sacrifice. Alrighty, number 3. I already mentioned a few minutes ago, I'm not a fan of, external raid buffs like Power Infusion or the Kyrian Link or Benevolent Fairy or whatever. And this ability does sort of fall under that. At potential, it sort of does. It does and it doesn't, because it was in 2 different forms. Number 3, I am hesitant to say, it's a personal favorite of mine, is Dark Intent. Now, I will say right now, I would totally be fine if Dark Intent did not come back. Like, it's one of those weird things where I want to mention it because I like Dark Intent. I remember playing with it before. It's been changed a million times. It's a fun, exciting, semi-iconic kind of ability. But it either was a buff that you put on yourself and another player, which would buff both of your damage, or it was a raid-wide buff. And raid-wide buffs, number 1, are a contested topic now because, if you don't have a mage or a warrior or whatever, you're missing Arcane Intellect, you're missing Shout, you're missing whatever they bring, and no priest, you're missing Fort, right? And scrolls aren't a thing. So this would make another class like Warlock, hey, sort of required for Dark Intent on the raid. But let's review what it was initially. So it was added in Kata. Effect, you link yourself with the targeted friendly target, increasing both your haste by 3%. So not as big as Kyrian Link, not as big as Power Infusion. It's a passive 3 though. When you or the linked target gain a critical periodic damage effect, killing effect, the other gains an increased 3% increased damage. This is confusing. But it stacks 3 times, and it's a passive buff you put on somebody, and it's just there. So, like, as long as you crit or whatever happened, the other person would have a 9% increased effect, essentially. It lasted 7 seconds, and it stacked 3 times. It was pretty strong. I remember way back in the day giving it to my Boomkin friend, because he was my friend. I don't know if it was good or not. Boomkins, but I gave it to him. And then it was changed. They nerfed it to 1% from 3. Still 3 stacks here. I guess you got 3%, but the person you gave it to got 1%. It was hot fixed, something here. And then in Mist, it was redesigned. It infuses all party and raid members. This is what it went to becoming a raid buff. With Shadow increasing their spell power by 10% for 1 hour. Arcane Intellect, sort of. It's a pretty big buff, honestly. If the target is in your party or raid, all party and raid members will be affected. This is a full-on raid buff. Dark Intent was just a thing. It was, hey, have a Warlock for Dark Intent on the raid. Similar to Shout, similar to Arcane Intellect, similar to Fort, other raid-based effects, right? It was changed in patch 5.2. Now increases stamina and as well as spell power. They reduced the mana cost, and sure. And it was removed in Legion because, because I guess it gave multi-strike for a bit too. But then it was removed in Legion because there was that weird like shift away from raid by buffs and things a bit too, and then we shifted back to it. So like I said, would be totally fine if Dark Intent was not a thing in this game. But if Blizzard keeps moving forward with the idea of raid buffs from classes and classes mattering and raid comp mattering and things, partially due to like, how good classes are, and partially due to like, hey, you want 1 Dark Intent, you want 1 AI, you want 1 Shout, you want 1 Fort, you want 1 Demon Hunter buff, you want 1 Monk buff. I wouldn't mind seeing Dark Intent come back. And this is not me saying, oh, Warlock needs more utility. I just think it's sort of a cool iconic ability that I like personally. This swarm right here, where it's like the buff on you and another player, it's free damage. I'll take it, but I don't think it's going to come back. And if Blizzard said, hey, you can either have Dark Intent back, but Power Infusion and Fairy, Benevolent Fairy and Kyrian Link are all staying, which some of them are going away because Covenants, or they can all be removed from the game, I'd say take them all away. I don't want Dark Intent on 2 people. Take them all away. I think external buffs are very bad for the game. They're good in prog to allocate damage to other parts to people in raid where you want extra damage, like fairies on Destro locks or PI on Demo locks or fire mages. But they are a terrible thing in farm and ruin the game. Hot take, maybe not too hot, but hey, if raid buffs are staying, number 3 for me, personal favorite, Dark Intent. Okay. Number 2, this is a personal favorite of mine, but I think it's a personal favorite of most everybody who played Warlock in Legion. Number 2, let me find the actual tab here, is Grimoire of Supremacy. You are able to maintain control over even greater demons indefinitely, allowing you to summon a Doomguard or Infernal as a permanent pet. Now listen, the game has changed a lot since Legion, and since Grimoire of Supremacy was around, right? Your Infernal is different now for Destro, for example. The one you have now brings Shard Gen. It's tied to Reign of Chaos and things, right? Your 4-piece procs. So they probably would have to change the way this like permanent Infernal works, like with, you know, just the way it functions, right? Compared to what your main cooldown is for Destro right now. I mean, you had Soul Harvest when this was out, right? For AF, for Destro, I think even for Demo too, if you took it, I think maybe. The Doom Guard is a pet every spec can get now in game if you do Ritual of Doom, if you summon one out, but you really can't control it for very long. It breaks and goes wild, or somebody in the raid kills it or whatever. I think it'd be really cool. Everybody loved Grimoire of Supremacy. Hey, your Doomguard had a kick on it. Your Infernal had the big stun, the big AoE stun you could, like, you know, sort of control. It's like a second Shadow Fury. It was really cool. It was iconic, right? And this is a great spell to put, I think, personally, in a General Warlock talent tree. I mean, Druids, they have Convoke in their, you know, balanced side of the tree, but I think that sort of fits, like, the balance side, not only the general boomkin or the general druid side of the tree. I guess most druids are boomkins anyways, right? So it's sort of like one big thing. But I think this is a good general warlock talent. Probably towards the end, one of the capstone traits you can take, because a permanent Doomguard, a permanent Infernal, as long as they're tuned properly, which I would assume they're going to be, is, I would probably assume, a pretty substantial DPS increase. But it's cool, it's iconic, it's a throwback to Legion, and it's a strong but not too strong ability that just, once again, I think fits the general Warlock talent tree pretty well. Or could, if they reworked the baseline Infernal. You couldn't give your permanent Infernal permanent Immolation aura, right? But depending what they did, I could see Grimoire of Sup coming back and being a really relevant thing. I loved the ability back in the day. Wouldn't mind seeing it at all. With that being said, let's move on to number 1, which I was going to put as honorable mention. I'm not sure if it's too strong or not. It probably is. But it had 2 different forms. So I said, you know what? We'll make it number 1, a personal favorite of mine and basically everybody else. And I think I would be yelled at if I left it out of the video. Number 1. Everybody's already guessed it. It's Kil'jaedens Cunning. It's KJC. This thing was overhauled 10 times, man. So Kil'jaedens Cunning. The spell, like, on the surface looks pretty bland, but at the same time was pretty impactful on certain fights, right? So it was added in patch 504 and Mist. I forgot, it doesn't even show the baseline text here. I'm pretty sure it allowed you to cast, like, Incinerate, certain abilities for each spec, right? It's just Malefic Grasp. Oh, I thought it was Malefic Wrath. Incinerate, Malefic Grasp, and Shadow Bolt while moving. I believe it had a slow on it at a certain point. I don't remember this actually. I didn't play a whole lot in early Mist. It looks like it was removed in later Mist. It became a passive talent. Its activated ability had been removed. So it was in 2 different forms as well. You also had the form of it being an instant cast with a 35-second cooldown on it, which allows you to cast Warlock spells for 8 seconds on the move. So if you had some kind of pre-planned movement coming, okay, I can KJC at this point every single time in the fight. Or even at certain points, it was a half-minute cooldown, right? Hey, I have to move, a random mechanic. Pop KJC, keep casting, nothing happens. Everything's the same. I don't know if it's off the GCD or not, but either way, it was a very powerful ability in certain spots, but I enjoyed it a bit more when it's a passive. Didn't have to pop it as an instant cast every half a minute. It was redesigned in WoD. KJC calls upon the cunning of Kil'jaeden to permit movement while casting Warlock spells. The spell may be cast while casting their spells in less than 8 seconds. Sure. It was given a 1-minute cooldown here. It was increased to 1 minute in WoD, and I guess it was decreased again here, and it was removed in Legion. Now, everybody has their fondest memory of Kil'jaeden's Cunning. They remember that one point on one fight where everyone's moving and dodging effects, and you're the Warlock running around just blasting Incinerates or blasting Shadow Bolts or whatever. People remember KJC. This is an iconic ability that when the talent trees came out, everybody said, bring back Kil'jaeden's Cunning. I think it's a very strong effect, quite possibly too strong, but quite possibly also not strong enough in certain settings, right? If this is like a capstone trait where you just get it passively, on certain fights, it might not even be crazy relevant on patchwork settings, right? But other ones, what's a good example? I don't know, Il'gynoth, what's a good, this tier, like the Jailer. There's a lot of movement on certain fights, so KJC can be really, really strong there. I was hesitant to make it the number 1 talent in the video, but I think it fits every Warlock spec really well. Even right here, There's Destro, there's Af, there's Demo. It was a general spell when you had the General Warlock talent tree and not one for each spec. I think KJC could come back as a later capstone kind of talent that you choose in the General Warlock tree. And if tuned properly, I don't think it would be too OP. I would love the passive version of it, not the one you toggle every once in a while. Just because, hey, I like to have to worry about toggling an ability or popping an instant every half a minute. But either way, number one, if I didn't put Kil'jaedens Cunning in the top 2, people would be pissed. So I said, hey, forget the honorable mention. Let's make it number 1. Number 1, Kil'jaedens Cunning. Before you guys go crazy, let me know down below as well in the comments if KJC is too strong or not. 'Cause I'm on the fence about it. I can talk about this for half an hour. Let me know what you guys think. For me, number 1, Kil'jaedens Cunning. So I think that about wraps it up. Thanks for watching, guys. This was indeed the final video in the Warlock Dragonflight hopeful returning talent series. I had a lot of fun making these. Destro, Demo, Af, they were all fun. The general video, this one, felt a bit tough to fill, like in 6, 7, 8, those spots, but 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, they're all bangers. They're all iconic abilities people know and think of when you hear Warlock. Permanent Doom Guards, Permanent Infernals, Kil'jaedens Cunning, Dark Intent, Demonic Sacrifice, 0/2140 Destro, right? People, even Demonic Knowledge, right? People know these abilities. They were played back in the day, and I mean, if they were tuned properly and things, they could still very well be played this day when it comes to the, I guess, a General Warlock talent tree. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about these suggestions and things in the comment section below. If I miss anything that you guys think is important, drop it down there as well. I debated Detect Greater Invisibility, Shadow Ward, things like that, but I didn't think they were impactful enough. They're around in TBC now, and like they're cool, but they're not talents, right? They're like just sort of baseline abilities you wouldn't mind having back. It was harder than I thought filling this list, but I feel like there's 1 or 2 that I just missed. So if I did, or there's ones you think I should have mentioned, drop them down below in the comment section. And once again, give me your thoughts on KJC, Kil'jaedens Cunning, because I think it could be borderline too strong, but at the same time, with how things are in modern WoW nowadays, I don't know if Kil'jaedens Cunning is too strong or just sort of mediocre. I think it depends on the fight, but I don't know. Let me know. So any weak orders or add-ons, profiles you saw in this video are all for free on my Twitch. Link down below if you want to swing by, grab them, hang out, ask any questions about any time. Feel free to do so. And also, I want to give one huge shout out to my patrons. Once again, thank you a million times, guys, for all the support. Really appreciate it. If you guys are looking at supporting on Patreon, there should be a link somewhere up here, as well as down in the video description below. All that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. We might kill the Jailer on Mythic this week, actually, if you guys want to swing by. I'll catch you all again soon. Peace.